ทัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนัมมัสสามิ Good evening, blessings to you all. Tomorrow in the monastery we have an ordination of 11 novice monks. And so ordinations, people entering the Sangha for whatever length of time is always a joyful experience. It's a good thing for each individual who comes forth to offer themselves for training in the Buddha Sasana, or the Dhamma Vinaya as we call it. But it's also good for the group, for the monastery and for the lay supporters, because it always reminds us of the purpose of our practice and why we are practicing following the Buddha. Why does somebody ordain as a novice or a monk? They take that step, they leave home for whatever period of time, indefinitely maybe, for their whole life or for a period of time. They leave home, we say, they leave the home life for the homeless life. They give up their possessions, their wealth, their family, the comforts, all kinds of things, and come and live in a monastery, shave their head, put on the brown robes of a monk, eat one meal a day out of a bowl, live in a simple hut under a tree, and give up a lot of habits and activities associated with lay life. And why do we do that? Well, because it's a way of training. It's a very suitable place to come and live in the forest, a quiet place, and dedicate yourself to this training of body, speech and mind with a clear goal, and that is to free the mind from the causes of suffering and experience the peace, the happiness of the end of suffering. And the Buddha is one of the most simple way the Buddha described what he taught was he teaches the suffering and the end of suffering. And the monk's life is dedicated to that, to ending one's suffering and the suffering of others. And perhaps that's the starting point why one comes into a monastery to hear the teachings, to practice is one recognizes that life does have dukkha, suffering, stress, its imperfections, its unsatisfactory side. It's there, and when one recognizes that, one is looking for a way out. And for some people, just seeing a Buddhist monk symbolizes that. Even not having heard any teachings yet, just seeing a monk, the peaceful way of a monk, say walking arms round, or meditating, or just going about their business is already enough to arouse interest. Seeing a monk, people think, oh, what do they do? What do they practice? They look peaceful. So that symbolism is very much in the world now. A monk or a nun is a renunciant who symbolizes peace, renunciation, harmlessness, compassion, and that search for spiritual enlightenment. So many people just seeing more monks and nuns coming into the world, that brings them joy, makes them happy. Of course, that's only the starting point, and we have to actually get down to the practice. Once you've come into the monastery, shaven your head, put your robe on, then you still have to practice. And there may be one or two obstacles and challenges along the way. It's not all smooth going. Ajahn Chah used to compare, the monk's life to we're like a block of wood. You come into the monastery, and anyone living here will know this. A tree falls down, you get the wood from that tree. You can use it to make things. So you can get a block of wood from a fallen tree, but that block of wood is very rough edges, full of holes and knots and all kinds of things. It's not yet beautiful, it needs to be worked. It's just like the candidate for ordination, they come into the monastery with a good aspiration, but they've got to work with all their own rough edges and knots and imperfections. And that takes time and effort, and that's the practice. And it's turning that piece of wood, say, into a beautiful Buddha statue. In many countries, particularly in Thailand, they have amazing artisans who can carve teak, and they carve these beautiful teak statues of the Buddha, very refined, using the wood, the natural colour and texture and colours of the wood to blend that in with their carving ability. And you can see some amazing carved Buddha statues. But that takes a lot of effort, getting it from the rough block of wood, shaping it, chipping away, carving it, smoothing off the edges, rounding the edges, and so on, until you get the finished Buddha. It requires a lot of effort, a lot of work. Just as we have to put in effort into training this heart, this mind, using the monastic training or the whole Buddhist path, the Eightfold Path, whether you're living at home or in a monastery, to train yourself from that starting point of a rough piece of wood, not much use yet, but developing it into something beautiful. So the Buddha used to say, Jittang dantang sukhavahang, a well-trained mind brings happiness. That's why we put that effort in to train ourselves, because our aim is to experience enjoyment, happiness with this mind, make this mind into something beautiful, a good place to be, your own mind. Because we all know the mind that is not a good place to be, not a happy place to be. The mind of stress, suffering, we've all had some of that in our lives. That's why we're practicing, is to get beyond that, to that place of happiness and peace. But like the wood craftsman, he has to put a lot of effort, maybe many months of effort, to get the final product. So it's a commitment to making that effort, putting in the wholesome effort. And the Buddha pointed out over and over again, his teachings require effort. It's not a teaching based just on faith or belief. It's not a teaching based on just praying and requesting blessings and good things from a deity or a higher force. It's a teaching based on effort, putting in effort into the practice, virya-vada. Just as the craftsman has to put in effort to change that piece of wood into something beautiful, whether it's a Buddha statue or a furniture or whatever. But the samana, or the one who's left the home life, as Ajahn Chah used to say, a samana is a peaceful one, a peaceful person. They embody these qualities that we train with, so the quality of nekkhamma, renunciation. You don't join the monkhood to make money. If you want to make money in the world, go off and do business, start a company called Amazon or something like that, and you'll make lots of money. You don't make money as a monk, so you're in the wrong place if you're looking for that coming into the monastery. We practice nekkhamma, giving up that addiction and obsession with sensuality and seeking endless sensual experiences that we often associate with wealth, money, travel, and all the things the world has to offer that can allure and satisfy temporarily our senses. You're moving away from that, seeing that there is a deeper, more profound kind of happiness in training the mind on the inside, in the Eightfold Path, developing sila, samadhi, panya, insight. Liberating insight sees beyond the temporary happiness of sensual desire and the objects of the senses to a deeper, much more satisfying, more peaceful kind of happiness. But it has to start with that willingness to turn away from the endless seeking, searching for wealth and different kinds of sensual experience towards training the mind. So a samana symbolizes nekama, renunciation, letting go of the world. And also harmlessness. Samana is associated with harmlessness. They train themselves not to abuse or take advantage of others physically, verbally, or even mentally, with even giving up our mental anger, those character traits rooted in anger, ill will, cruelty, selfishness, anything that would lead to exploitative type of behavior, which is a big call for a human being. But the Buddha and all the enlightened monks and nuns since the time of the Buddha have proven it can be done. So we have our goal, the abandoning of sensual attachment and the abandoning of ill will and cruelty. And where's the place you abandon them is in your own heart. You have to root them out. So the Buddha said this is like the toughest war of all. Everyone would be nervous about the thought of going to war. Luckily we don't have many wars these days, certainly not around here. That's our good fortune, our good karma. But whenever there is a war in the world or in the past, the thought of being conscripted, going into an army, into battle, would bring fear, whether you're doing it yourself or it's your loved ones going off. There's the thought, what's going to happen to them? They're going to get hurt, destroyed, never see them again. But here we're going into battle with our own wrong views and attachments on the inside. So it's a very subtle kind of battle within your own heart. But you have the right uniform, the uniform of a Buddhist monk. You have the right tools and weapons, the weapons of the path, sila, samadhi, panya, developing one's mindfulness and insight to recognize that the real enemy is not outside, it's inside. It's one's own attachments, cravings, desires and attachments, which have to be recognized and then abandoned. That's the real war, that's the hard war. So even that kind of war brings up nervousness. Some people have been thinking about becoming a Buddhist monk for many years but never quite made that step. Why? Because there's a certain nervousness about letting go, because it's not an easy thing to do. And the Buddha said it's like the greatest victory to let go of a defilement. Even one defilement once is already a great victory. To permanently abandon greed, anger and delusion from the mind is not easy. So it's the greatest victory, but then it requires a lot of effort, many struggles, many practices to do. So that brings up nervousness, trepidation. So when I sometimes jokingly say to people, you want to ordain? Straight away they shy away. If it's somebody young, said, you want to come and live in the monastery, ordain? They literally get up and run away. Because they're scared of that battle. The easier battle is the physical battle outside, competing with other people for fame and fortune and property in this world. The hard battle is the spiritual battle on the inside. But it's the most rewarding because it brings you peace and happiness. It starts day one in the monastery. When I first went into the monastery, it was 1983, a long time ago now, my first thought was, am I going to be able to survive on one meal a day? Am I going to be able to get up for the morning chanting? Here we get up for 5 a.m. So you have to get up at 4:30. In Thailand, you have to get up at 3 a.m. There's a morning wake-up bell, 3 a.m., which in the long run actually turned out to be a good thing, because 3 a.m. in Thailand, which is a hot country, it's quite a pleasant time of day. It's quiet, the air is cool, the forest is quiet, so it's a good time to meditate. But in the beginning there was nervousness. Oh, am I going to be able to get up at 3 a.m.? So of course that nervousness makes you get up at 2 a.m., which is also good. You get up early just so you can make sure you're there for the 3 a.m. bell. How about you get up at 2? Well, you practice more chance to practice mindfulness, meditation, sitting, walking meditation. I had that nervousness, but I got over it, luckily. And you can train yourself to get up earlier, especially if you only eat one meal a day. In the evening, your stomach feels light, so you can sleep a few hours at night, whatever you need, and then get up quite early. In Australia, especially in the mountains here in Melbourne, it's a bit colder even, so we get up for 5 a.m. because the nights can be very cold. But still it's the same principle, learning to practice wakefulness. We've slept so much in our life. You think about it, even if you sleep 8 hours a day, that's a third of your day gone. 24 hours, it's a third. So a third of your life is spent sleeping. So maybe sleep 1 hour less or 2 hours less. 6 hours isn't quite reasonable. The Buddha said, well, at night just sleep 4 hours. That's the guideline, but maybe you can't manage that yet. Fair enough. Maybe have a brief nap in the afternoon if you've got time, you're not too busy. You have to work it out, but just think how much of your life you're spending sleeping, and how sleep tends to lead to indulgence, doesn't it? The more you sleep, the more you dream, the more your mind inclines towards drowsiness. It's a habit. So a lot of our sleep is habitual. It's not so necessary for the body. Everyone's different, so some people do need more sleep than others. You have to learn your own level, but our lifestyle is dedicated to a wakefulness, mindfulness, alertness. So for me that was one concern, but I found quite quickly I could survive. I asked one of the monks, when I went to Thailand, I asked one of the monks, I said, you get up every day at 3 a.m. You've been doing that for many years. Is it okay? He said, yeah, it's fine. You don't die. And you actually get a lot of benefit. It brings up more determination in the practice, more states of mindfulness. Sometimes you get very peaceful in the morning. You actually can attain samadhi right in the first thing in the morning. Sets you up for the rest of the day. My second fear was, can I survive on 1 meal a day? Because most people think 1 meal a day means just one average sized meal a day, and that's it. So you're bound to get skinny and hungry and have no energy. But there's no actual rule how much you eat. The Buddha encouraged us to practice moderation, so to eat a moderate amount, enough for your bodily needs. But if you need to eat a bit more than the average meal, that's okay. If you only eat 1 meal a day, you eat a little bit more and you get used to that. So very quickly after a couple of days, I could see, you can eat enough to get by. In the evening you can have a drink just to fill your stomach, settle your stomach, and you've got all this energy left in the evening because you're not digesting food. And you don't have to waste a lot of time, cooking and cleaning and washing up in the evening. You've got a free time for meditation. So I quite like that. So my first few doubts about being in the monastery and not, only eating 1 meal a day, getting up 3 a.m., they very quickly were dispelled. I realized, it's quite doable. And when you can see other people doing it and benefiting from it, then you get encouraged. And it makes you look back at your lay life and realize how much of lay life is a bit of habitual indulgence in sleep, food, and all these other things that are maybe not so necessary to our health and well-being and peaceful mind, but we do them anyway. And then all the distractions, you go in, like I used to be a musician, so went into the monastery, no music, but it was all right. You find you get other kinds of pleasure, the subtle pleasures of the lifestyle. You live a lifestyle where you're not harming anybody, or not even a bug, not even a mosquito. You're helping people, you're doing acts of service, you're meditating, you're letting go of stressful thoughts, you're learning many things, learning the Dhamma that the Buddha taught. You get a new kind of happiness and joy that replaces your old ones. And it's free and it's internal and it doesn't require any props and extra things. So music was very easy for me, very easy to drop, even though previously it had been a big part of my life. Other things require more effort and patience. So like everyone knows, the life of a monk is celibate. So you have to practice celibacy, no sexual activity at all. And for many people, that's a fear. And being single and celibate, So that one's like a work in progress for most monks. You come into the robes, you don't just drop your celibacy from day. You keep celibacy, but you don't just drop your sexual desire from day one. You have to work with it, contemplate it. And there's many ways the Buddha encouraged us to practice contemplating with sexual desire. One is to see the temporary nature of it. It comes and it goes, it arises and passes away. It's temporary, it's impermanent. And then to look at the object of your sexual desires, or the attachment to the body, the physical body, to contemplate the unattractive side of that. Our body has its unattractive side, the smells, the bits that don't look so good, the aches and pains, the aging of the body, all the things that we don't like to consider, especially when we have sexual desire in our mind. And then also to consider that there are higher happinesses. The abandoning of sexual desire actually leads to a higher happiness. Renunciation leads on to the happiness of states of samadhi. Much better. But this is, as I say, it's a work in progress. It's not like it just drops away. One has to keep practicing, developing mindfulness, developing the meditation, and letting go of sexual desire and all kinds of sensual desire as well. And it can catch you out sometimes because it's so deeply rooted in us as human beings. Sexual desire can pop up anytime, can be stimulated by seeing something or a memory, and you could suddenly fall back into old moods, old mental habits. So you have to be on your guard, you have to be alert. And many of our training rules in the monastery help with that, to be on alert and to be guarding against falling into, say, sexual activity. I remember once when I was staying at Wat Nana Chat, I was about 1 reins, and I was sitting on the monk's high seat. There's a few of us there, and I was about number 2 or 3 in line because a lot of the monks were away. So I was very junior, but I was sitting up the high end of the line. And a group of teachers came in, Western teachers who had been teaching in Thailand, and they were on a little holiday around Thailand, having taken a break from teaching English in a school in Bangkok. There's about 7 or 8 of them. And they came into the meditation hall as we were sitting there waiting for the morning food offering. And they came in, and one of them looked exactly like my old girlfriend. And she came in, and from a distance, I thought, oh no, what do I do? I was preparing myself for a tsunami of emotion, but I even turned to the next monk. I said, oh, it looks like my old girlfriend. What will I do? But of course, that was my mind. It wasn't real. It was my own mind, my own perception, my own memory, projecting it onto a total stranger. So as she got nearer, I realized, oh, total stranger, no problem. But it was a very good reflection for me because, you look at a total stranger, you can convince yourself they're your old girlfriend, but that's just your mind playing tricks. When you take away that wrong perception, you realize, oh, that's someone I don't know. There's no lust, there's no desire, there's nothing. It's just a person visiting the monastery. And you learn like that as you practice mindfulness and investigate your own desires. You realize they're all tricking you. They're like tricking you over and over again. And it's when you establish mindfulness and investigate, well, they can just drop away. And maybe a little bit of your defilement drops away at that moment, and you realize, I've been tricked by these kind of desires so many times, over and over again. So not an easy one to deal with. It's an ongoing work in progress, but it is, again, it's the heart of the Buddhist monk's life, celibacy, and we get known for that. We're celibate. And it makes life easy, you know, one hairstyle, one set of clothes. You're not out to impress anyone. To wear, you know, I've got the best bald head in the monastery. I've got the best set of robes in the monastery. You don't have to do that anymore. So it's kind of a rest from the normal behavior of men and women in the world, impressing each other, competing with each other on that sort of sexual level. You can drop all that and be totally at peace, and that helps your mind to go inwards into the meditation. It's one of the benefits of the holy life. So as a Buddhist monk, you're getting familiar with these themes: celibacy, the renunciation of sensuality, harmlessness. You know, as a Buddhist monk, you have to learn to be patient with the ups and downs of life. You know, when you meet people, and sometimes people can be rude or aggressive to Buddhist monks, but you have to respond with patience, forgiveness, compassion. Again, these are qualities you have to invest time in developing. Yeah, it's a work in progress. Maybe when you first come into the monastery, you have a short fuse. Some people do. And all kinds of things go wrong, and you know, they have to learn not to swear, not to get upset, not to get angry, not to take their anger out on other people. And maybe it's harder in a monastery than at home, because at home you're in your own space. Maybe you can run things how you like. In a monastery, you're in a communal space. You've got to learn to get on with other people, share, cooperate, negotiate, talk with, listen to. Plenty of challenges. If you're somebody with a lot of accumulated anger or angry habits, it can be a good test of your practice. And you learn how to be more patient with people and situations. And there'll be plenty of situations. You live in a monastery, you know, everything is teaching you. If you're looking for teachings, they're there every day. You don't have to create them. Like the other day, there was this thunderstorm, and the heavens opened, and all this rain came down, and some of the roofs were leaking and water flooding into the building, and then all the ditches in the road and things were washing away. You know, just something very simple like that, like an unexpected thunderstorm. It's a practice, isn't it? You know, you have a leaky roof, you could just get upset and complain and swear and curse and blame somebody, or you just practice patience and watch your mind and restrain your speech. And rather than swearing and cursing and breaking your precepts and getting upset, well, you just quietly do what needs to be done, mop up the water, go and check where the leak is, see what can be done, if it can be fixed, and so on. You practice mindfulness in that way, you watch your mind, you let go of the stress of that situation. So this is the whole of the Buddhist path in one simple thunderstorm. You know, your life in a monastery is like that. There may be very ordinary activities and experiences and situations arising, but you turn them all into part of the practice. It means you're always practicing heedfulness, apamada. It's another thing a monk is associated with, one who is heedful. You know, a thunderstorm reminds us that the world is ultimately beyond our control. We don't control the weather, we don't control other people, what's going on in the world. You know, lots of people interacting in this world. Much of it is far beyond our control. Where we can control is our own mind. And we have to practice heedfulness every day. I mean, review our precepts and our sila, practice bringing up mindfulness, which meditation will help with, and then learn to contemplate on the Dhamma rather than just react with stress and suffering to situations. You learn to contemplate. So you have a leaky roof, you say, roofs are impermanent. We just chanted that earlier, sabbe sankhara anicca. You know, you might think, words of Pali, what do they mean? Well, they mean all conditioned things are impermanent, and a roof is a conditioned thing. So when the roof is leaking, it's sabbe sankhara anicca. It's a conditioned thing. The roof is leaking. Ah, yes, it's impermanent. Roofs are impermanent. The weather is impermanent. Could be you know, you got a stomach ache or a headache. Oh, bodies are impermanent. The bodies sometimes have aches and pains, and we get illnesses. Sometimes you stub your toe, or you feel tired, or you feel hungry. Feelings are impermanent. We have some pain, some pleasure. Everything is teaching us. And a monastery is an excellent place to develop the skill in contemplating your experience. You know, we practice a lot of mindfulness, but mindfulness is a vehicle for supporting contemplation. What is it ultimately that frees our mind from stress and suffering? It's contemplation, development of wisdom, understanding. So if you have enough mindfulness and you contemplate, say, a leaky roof, you know, it helps you to free the mind from stress in that moment. You may still have to go and fix the leaky roof, but the stress that may arise is what you're looking at in your own mind, any anger, aversion, worry, fear, anxiety, and then you apply that to everything. Your health, your relationships, your future, anything that worries you, anything that brings fear. You establish mindfulness, you learn to contemplate, and you use the tools that the Buddha gave you. You know, just as you need tools to mend a leaky roof, you need tools to look after your mind, keep it free from suffering. So the tool might simply be the contemplation of things are impermanent. They're not guaranteed. You know, you can't guarantee that your roof will never leak. You can't guarantee that your body will never experience pain. You can't guarantee that other people will always understand you and speak nicely to you and cooperate with you. Your life is a mixture of experiences. And the reflection on impermanence and uncertainty reminds you of that and helps you deal with it. The reflection on dukkha is the same. Sabbe dukkha, sabbe sankhara dukkha. You know, all conditioned things, all formations are dukkha. Because they're impermanent, they're unsatisfactory. They can't give us permanent, lasting happiness. It'd be nice if roofs didn't leak. It'd be nice if bodies didn't get old and sick and have aches and pains. But they do, because they're impermanent, conditioned things. They change with age, with different conditions. You know, the heavy rain leads to leaks. Wear and tear leads to leaks. Wear and tear leads to achy bodies, painful bodies. Ultimately, you might get some disease and die. Who knows? But sabbe sankhara dukkha. You know, physical things, mental things are subject to dukkha. They're unsatisfactory. That's the nature of the world. These are reflections you use, you bring out every day to contemplate your very life as you lead your life. You know, you could use them as mantras as you walk down the street, going to work, doing your business, sweeping leaves, eating your food, getting up in the morning, going to bed at night. You just say, sabbe sankhara anicca, sabbe sankhara dukkha, and sabbe sankhara anatta. Physical formations, mental formations are ultimately not a self, they're non-self. You don't own them and control them. They arise and cease according to conditions. And you can contemplate this every day. Like one of my first contemplations of sabbe sankhara anatta was as a young monk. When you're a young monk, you know, you're all over the place, can't wear your robes properly, and picking things up and dropping things because you're learning to be mindful with the monk's life. And I picked up somebody else's bowl. You know, if you have a few monks living together, it's very easy to pick up somebody else's alms bowl because they all look very similar. Sometimes monks have to put their initials on them or something just to make an identifying mark. And I picked up, in haste, I picked up someone else's alms bowl and started walking off. Then I noticed, oh, it's not my bowl. I noticed the patterns on the cover of the bowl were different from the usual bowl I had. So I thought, oh, it's not my bowl. So I went back, put it down, and found my own bowl, picked that up. But at the same time, I noticed when I put down a bowl that wasn't mine, It's an experience of not self. It's like that. Oh, this isn't mine. You put it down. You have no more interest in it, no more attachment to it, no worries about it, because it's not yours. Of course, I might still have attachment to my own bowl, and I pick that. Oh, this is my bowl. No one can have it. That's a deeper kind of attachment you have to work on. But when you pick up something that is not yours and you realize it's not yours, you're getting an insight into not self, because not self feels like that. Oh, it's not mine. You put it down. If you could have that insight into your own body, it would also be the same. You'd be mentally putting down your own body, knowing that it's a collection of physical elements come together, the 32 parts of the body for a period of time, eventually gets old, gets sick and dies. But if mentally you can put down that attachment, then it's like, oh, it's just a body. It's not my body, it's just a body. It's not my bowl, it's just a bowl. It's not my body, it's just a body. It's not my feeling, it's a feeling. So the Buddha wasn't, when he's teaching not self, he wasn't saying there's nothing there at all. He's just saying if you attach to it with a sense of self and take ownership of it, whatever it is, you'll suffer. If you attach to your body as my body, then anything that goes wrong with it, or you have pain, or you have worry about what might happen to it, you'll suffer. If you attach to your possessions as my possessions, you start to suffer. You worry about them. You start to have a burden on your mind. If you attach to other people as my husband, wife, my child, my parent, my this, my that, you start to suffer because of that sense of self. So you start with little things, and the monastic life is great for that. You learn not to attach to your accommodation, your robes, your bowl, the things around you. You're learning to see them as not self. And then you turn that inside and start to see, ultimately even thoughts, emotions, feelings are not self in the sense that they arise, they're true, but you don't own them. They come through different causes and conditions. So certain causes give rise to feelings of pleasure, pleasant, sense contact, sense experience. Certain conditions give rise to unpleasant feelings based on unpleasant sense contact. But within that process, there's no person, there's no owner. It's more like there's a mind witnessing these things. The more you contemplate, the more you become what we call the internal witness. Just witnessing your experience, but not grasping at it and clinging to it with a sense of self. So the monastic life gives you a great insight into that. Every day you can contemplate things, and the Buddha even encouraged us to do that. Teaching, when he's teaching this teaching of non-self to the monks, he say it's just like the leaves, the branches, the twigs off the trees that fall off onto the floor of the forest. In the monastery, sooner or later somebody comes along, sweeps them up, takes them away and burns them. And when that happens, you don't feel any attachment. It's just twigs and branches being swept up and burnt, cleared away. That's the experience of not self. When you have insight, you realize that even your own body is that way. It's something ultimately you have to let go of. It's not something you can cling on to forever. It doesn't last forever. The experiences of this world are like that. You have them, you witness them, you experience them, but then they pass away and they're gone. But if you can see that and you understand that, you're at peace, because you know that's the way things are. The body is just the body, feelings are just feelings, thoughts are just thoughts. Things are just as they are, but you don't cling on to them with delusion and a sense of self. You might say that's the goal of the holy life. We're doing all this practice to develop that kind of insight so that mind is free from clinging, free from suffering, free from that sense of self. So tomorrow we have an ordination, something to look forward to, something to be happy about. More Buddhist novice monks arising in the world. It's something for those participating to be to see as an achievement, to get yourself to the point in your life where you can take that step for however long, to enter a monastery, take on the precepts, the robes, the shaven head. That's an amazing thing, and it's very powerful good karma, and it's a very powerful force for peace and wisdom and compassion in the world. So it's something to be happy about, I hope. It's good for our family, friends, because we can share our experience with them. We can share the merits of it with them, share whatever Dhamma we've understood from our practice with them. And hopefully whenever your family, your friends think of you in the monastery, they're just going to think of you practicing what the Buddha taught, living peacefully, mindfully, harmlessly, dedicating yourself to the practice of mindfulness and insight in the monastery. That will bring up a good feeling for them. At this time of year, it's holiday time, so what else could we be doing? Could be lying on a beach, having a few beers, whatever it may be, which might sound good, but at the end of it, there's not a lot there that you've gained from the experience, and you may even have had one of those disaster holidays where you break up with your friends and all kinds of things go wrong. But coming into a monastery, you can guarantee you're going to learn something new that's helpful to you, make some good karma, do something that's really beneficial for yourself and for others. You don't need to doubt that. So it's something we can all give our anumodana to, and appreciation. And maybe for tonight I'll just say this much and wish you all good health, long life and happiness.